Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Ian Yarwood and I'm a lawyer here in Perth, Western Australia. The plot regarding the mysterious death of the Japanese diving instructor Yoshie Sazawa, also known as Sharlyn, has been thickening. Thankfully though, I've also got a little bit of clarity about her approximate date of death. In the past I had indicated that I thought that she had died in either 2004 or 2005. Many of you would be aware that since the 16th of November up until the 21st of November, the Royal Thai Police had been issuing press releases to the effect that Yoshie had actually passed away in 2004 or early 2004. Now thankfully, well, that appears to be about the only thing that the police got correct with their various press releases about Yoshie. But I've also found some other evidence that would indicate that she actually passed away on the 18th of June 2004. And I'll share that with you now. Now, originally, of course, I had mentioned a tribute that was dated the 5th of May 2007, where an apparently Japanese fellow by the name of Kawika wrote that she disappeared on the 18th late afternoon and was found behind her house on the 25th early afternoon. She had been dead for quite some time, and he was referring to that under the heading of Some Sad News 2004. He didn't mention the month, however, although thankfully I do get information from a number of you viewers, for which I thank you very much. And one of the viewers was mentioning various online forums, or fora for you Latin academics, and there was a post dated the 14th of February 2005, and I've got it here on my mobile phone, and I'll put a link below. It doesn't come up very clearly there, but it said, "I just heard that an ex-student of mine and very close friend of mine from years back died last June. I have been wondering why her letters stopped. If anyone has any details, please PM me. The only details I have are that she is gone, and this is a great loss to the diving community and the world." And that was posted by a fellow using the name of Mako Mark, M-A-K-O, Mark, and that was on the 14th of February 2005. So when he refers to last June, that seems to be June 2004. And so when we put those two bits of information together from those two posts or tributes, it would appear that she vanished on the 18th of June 2004, and her body was found on the 25th of June 2004. Now, I mean, obviously the police also said that she'd been found in 2004, although they said that she was found in her room or in her house with a suicide note, which is that part of their press release is completely at odds with what everyone else says. Everyone else says that she was found outside in the jungle, although the details about whether she was found on a rock, behind a rock, or hanging from a tree are all a little bit different. But everybody else says that that Sharlyn or Yoshie was found outside in the jungle, and that searches had been performed for her, and that she'd been missing for several days or up to a week, according to the Japanese fellow. Now, I also received an email back from an English professor, a professor of the English language, who works at a university in Tokyo, and she's an American lady by the name of Mary Knighton, and she excuse me, she wrote to me. This was on the 1st of December this year, 2021. She said, "As you recognize, Sharlyn passed away many years ago now, and it was deemed a suicide at the time by the authorities. Her Swedish partner in Koh Tao at the dive shop they ran together, and her family, who went to Thailand to look into matters and collect her remains. I attended a ceremony for her held in Tokyo and there was no discussion at the time of murder as you suggest. Although I would never have thought Sharlyn the type to commit suicide, I also had not seen her in years and did not know what was going on in her life at the time, or in her personal relationships with her partner and others on the island. She was well liked by pretty much everyone as a rule. In fact, many people spoke very highly of Sharlyn. The same professor had penned a little tribute in 2011 at the conclusion of one of her published essays, which read as follows: "I would like to dedicate this essay to the memory of my good friend Sharlyn Sazawa." So the little bit of information that I received from Professor Knighton was interesting, because amongst other things she mentioned the Swedish partner in Koh Tao. Now his name is Michael, and the understanding that I have from having spoken to many people is that at the time of her death, Sharlyn was actually estranged from Michael, and she was living alone in her house or bungalow. In addition, the information I have is that she was in dispute with both Michael and the manager of Big Blue Diving, whose name was Joachim Hedelin. And it would appear, though, that from what the professor wrote to me, that the family who went to investigate Sharlyn's death were perhaps misled into believing that Sharlyn and the Swedish gentleman Michael were still in a partnership. Although one of the things I did point out to the English professor was that her language was actually a little bit ambiguous, because although most people refer to a partnership as being some sort of a love partnership or a romantic partnership, we also can have other partnerships such as business partnerships and dance partnerships. I did ask the professor for clarification, but she has not replied to that request. But it's really, I think, up to readers to interpret her statement as suggesting that they were still in a de facto marriage or a de facto romantic relationship, which was not the case. And I think that that is something which should arouse suspicion in people, that the parents were perhaps misled, whether it was by Michael or whether it was by the police. She also made the comment in this particular article. She said there was no suggestion at the time of murder as you suggest. In fact, I've never said that I thought that Sharlyn was murdered. Many of the people on the island at the time, and many of the people who knew her and knew other people on the island and knew of conflicts that Sharlyn was in, have told me that they believe strongly that Sharlyn was murdered. I have simply said that her death is a suspicious death, and I think that it's a situation where if the Royal Thai Police are issuing press releases that have got very serious errors of fact, such as her body was found in her house with a suicide note, when everyone else says that it was found her body was found in the jungle and that she'd been missing for several days, I think that gives cause for any reasonable person to become increasingly suspicious. Because on Koh Tao, the police, of course, are often involved in covering up crimes, and often police, whether they are on Koh Tao itself or whether they are on the mainland, they've often got relatives who are heavy-duty criminals. And one of the people I'm thinking of there is the former scuba diving instructor by the name of Santi Cockpool, who has an older brother who's a lieutenant colonel of police at the city of Suratani. So it was also worthwhile noting from the short email I received from the professor that there was no mention there of a suicide note or anything like that. It was simply the case that people deemed it to be a suicide, but it also seems that the family who went to find out about Yoshie or Sharlyn had been misled, at least in relation to her relationship. Now, it's also interesting to note because a couple of the people that Sharlyn was in conflict were not Thai at all, they were Swedish, and some of the press releases that came out actually were trying to paint a picture that this Facebook page and this YouTube account are being run by a group of foreigners who are intent on damaging Thailand and on damaging Koh Tao. And in fact, I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. There's only one person behind this YouTube channel and this Facebook page, and that is yours truly. And in addition to that, I have absolutely got nothing against the people of Thailand. There are many wonderful, honest, hard-working Thai people around. What I do have a problem with is criminals, whether they are Thai or whether they are European or whether they are English or American or Australian. And I have published material in the past that has been critical of Westerners who have been involved with the deaths of foreigners on Koh Tao. In particular, I was critical of a diving instructor who was British, who neglected to properly look after a Norwegian girl who was struck and killed by a dive boat that was run by a Spanish diving company they're called Pura Vida. And anyway, so I mean, they did have a Thai driver at the time, but I've also been critical of Pura Vida because of an Argentinian lady by the name of Rocio Gomez, who was involved in her very first diving lessons, and who passed away due to lack of oxygen, and it would appear that her diving instructor had lost sight of her. So I've very frequently, and they're not the only cases, I've very frequently mentioned Europeans and Westerners who have behaved in a way that has led to the death or the injury to tourists. So I'm not targeting purely Thais who are criminals or purely Thais who are negligent. I also have discussed Westerners, expats who have either been negligent or acted in a criminal way to the detriment of tourists. So I just needed to clarify that point. And it's interesting that the Royal Thai Police do what they often do, which is they try to paint a picture of the bad Westerners or the the bad expats, excuse me, against the good Thai people, and that's not the case at all. Excuse me. There's only one person here, and I target wrongdoing whether it is from a Thai person or whether it is from an expat. And I think I'll leave it for that today. I will soon be publishing a video on my reaction to readers of the Bangkok Post article that was published just over a week ago. So I hope you look forward to that. In the meantime, please stay safe and give the video a like if you would like other people to see it. Thank you very much, and bye for now.